tried to stay focused and composed because the crowd at that point was really building. And when you're running, you're moving slower, so you can really hear the crowd and visually see more people. So yeah, it was really cool. At one point, each lap I ran by Steve Burgess, and he would shout just like Front Street Mile, which was really cool because I would always train with him before Front Street Mile every year. And so that was kind of like a nice, moment.
Sure. And then obviously that last lap, coming around the last few bends, going up Burnaby Hill, and then coming down Reed Street, making that turn, going across that picture of you on Gosling's. I don't know if you could see it because there was so many people there.
Yeah.
But take us through that because you really started to get the juices flowing there, knowing that you had it wrapped up. So take us through that last, I guess, 20 seconds of that race.
Yeah, I mean, I told myself I wasn't allowed to sort of celebrate or start, enjoying the moment until I was at least at the top of Burnaby, which I mean is way further out than I would ever in a I would say a normal race. This is not a normal race, but yeah, I don't know how many more opportunities I'm going to get to do this here. So I was like, you need to enjoy this one, and you have the time and space too. So I just tried to soak it all up, and yeah, it was pretty unbelievable that the race played out like it did. I was not expecting to have any time to celebrate. I thought it would be a really close race on the run. So yeah, just tried to enjoy as many high fives as I could and grab the flag and just enjoy those last 20 seconds. Yeah, running down the blue carpet to the finish line.
Sure. How emotional was it this time around as opposed to the first time around for you?
I think the first time around I didn't really know what to expect, and I just come off Commonwealth Games, and that was my big focus. And so this race in 2018 was just kind of like a race of the series that I need to do a good score in, and it's at home. And then obviously it was a crazy crowd, and I won, and the way I did. So I kind of had those sort of expectations and I guess emotions coming into this event. So I've definitely felt a lot more pressured and stressed this year than I did then. And my buildup has not been great. So I think this one was a lot more, I don't want to say more meaningful, but it was just very different from 2018. So I was a lot more relieved more than anything.
Sure.
And excited, obviously.
Sure. Well, I'm going to bring Neil in real quick, and we are going to be joined by Tyler Smith very shortly. But Neil, watching the three Bermudians, especially warm up and be in the field, and then to watch what Flora was able to do for a second time on island. Through your time in triathlon, what does that mean for the country? Because we had a team in the Commonwealth Games for a second time. We're not a big country, so that's an amazing feat. But to have three in an elite field in Bermuda for triathlon, what does that mean?
Absolutely massive for the sport, for the island. It was tremendous. Fortunately, I'd seen Erica race in Uruguay the week before.
Right.
So it was so unfortunate she slid out. It's going to happen in the wet. I mean, she deserved to be in that field. Tyler absolutely deserved to be in that field. He had an unfortunate incident in the swim. But the mere fact you can make the start line in the league race is pretty special. And three from Bermuda was just, it was mind-blowing.
Sure. Now, we look at where we've come from to where we are now. How does that, for you, being involved and so well involved, how does that make you feel personally to see some of the people that you've worked with, help to develop, help to get started, to see them actually compete?
Incredibly proud. And at the end of the day, it's them who are performing. And just to see that they've, from a young age, they have a passion and a drive, and they've all come along, and they're now elite level is just wonderful.
Yeah, and the fact that we're getting the opportunity to host an event such as the WTS in Bermuda, and the work that goes on behind the scenes for the people who help to put it on, the team. I mean, behind the athletes, but the team to work tirelessly to get it done. That must be a proud moment as well to see that all play out.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's such a logistically difficult event to put on when you consider people coming from around the world just to officiate at the event. That's got to be organised. Just the whole layout of the course and the shutting down of Hamilton in such a way It's pretty phenomenal. And just to see how quickly it gets put away too, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
amazing.
normal out there now.
It is just, afterwards I went and sat at the place on Front Street and I could not believe the height of activity still going on after the race, as everything's been put away. And just the volunteers out there. I mean, it's a credit to the volunteers, really.
Sure. No, Flora, you have an opportunity to show Bermuda, because you predicted there was going to be a party in Bermuda this time around, and you actually made the party. So take us through. I mean, when you came back for Flora Duffy Day, that whole week, I mean, you were flat out doing so much things. But in your mind, are you playing out, hopefully things will work out for a day like yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was the goal. Especially because in 2018, I won in such like dramatic fashion. I felt like I had to sort of do something similar, which is very, very difficult to do in these races. Like, you need a lot of things to line up exactly in your favor and a bit of luck. And somehow that all came together for me yesterday, which was great because, I mean, I think, people have seen me, maybe if they've watched the race in Bermuda in 2018 and then watched me race at the Olympics. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in between that was either good, bad, not so great. So I was like, well, this might be like the third time that, people have really tuned in to watch you. So you better perform well.
I saw you take that deep breath after you went across the line, like, whew, okay, it's over. It's over. I've been able to do it. But you say those things, all things have to line up, a bit of luck and everything. But that feeling once it's done, can you explain it?
I don't know. It's kind of, I guess, hard to explain. I mean, yesterday was a lot of like big relief because my build-up hadn't been great. And of course, I wanted to win here because I wanted to win in Bermuda. I also wanted to win because it helps me with the series. So that added another element of pressure. Whereas, like, well, if I don't win, then my chance of winning the series is done, which is not the end of the world, but I just wanted to keep that door open. So it was a big relief. And I guess it's just keeping my composure for the whole event, especially on the run. Because there was so many people cheering for me and celebrating, and it's a lot to handle and manage whilst you're trying to execute a race at that level. So it's a big relief and excitement and just kind of like, okay, I did it. You can take a breath now.
And it was a big breath.
Yeah.
So how did last week's 70.3 set you up for this week?
I don't know. I don't think it really set me up. It was a huge experiment of how it would turn out. There was 9 days between the races, so I knew that would be enough time for me to physically recover if I was, sore from the 70.3, which I was. But in terms of the training, they're a bit different, so I was sort of balancing the two. So I didn't know if I would have enough of the speed and intensity for a race like yesterday. But I was definitely a lot more comfortable racing in warm conditions. Even though yesterday maybe on the cooler side for Bermuda, it was 40 degrees warmer than what I raced in Utah the previous week. So I felt way more comfortable and at home.
Sure. And Neil, clearly a sport that you've put a lot of time into. When Flora gets off the bike and she's started that run, and it looked as if that's where total control took over of the race. What goes through your mind?
Pride. I just know, having known Flora for a long time, you can always look at Flora's face in a race, and I can tell you if it's her day or it's not her day. Mm-hmm. And it's something, she just has this game face on, and you know that determination, and you know that's the winning face. And she actually broke it very slightly as she last came past Aswad Arms. Mm-hmm. She smiled. Mm-hmm. And then we all were just cheering because we knew that was it. She had got it, and she was comfortable she'd got it too. So, and watching her enjoy the moment was fantastic.
Right.
Absolutely fantastic.
It's funny that Neil says that because I watched you when you brought your bike out, stone face. Mm-hmm. Even when you were warming up for the swim, you were walking at one point behind Erica, and both of you looked out at the water, but you never made eye contact or anything. You were just in this zone kind of thing. And is that from years of competing that you get into that mental space?
Yes, and yesterday I really had to, because the one positive of racing at home is, everyone knows you and is excited to see you and wants to take a photo with you and say hello, which is lovely. But 30 minutes before my race, I can't have any of that. So I kind of purposely had to be like a little more aggressive with my focus than I would normally be, just because I needed to get my bike in transition and then hustle back and get ready for my swim warm up and then get ready for the start, and so I think that's why I looked like a little bit probably extra
focused. I called it focused.
But I was also just being like, this is not the time for pictures or anything. Or, you know what I mean? It's just, it's an interesting balance.
Yeah. I mean, but it works out, in your favor when things do work out. And yesterday was important that you done what you had to do in order for those people at the end of it to want to celebrate even more. I mean, the kids were out, even grown adults were like, I want a photo. And it's such a busy time. And so take us through the celebration of winning this one, but it's not over because the job's not done. You still got another job to do.
Yeah, I know that's a difficult thing with these races, is I'm racing again in 3 weeks' time. So yeah, I finished yesterday, and of course, it was incredible, the podium and celebration, the crowd, and I felt like I kind of got like mobbed as I was walking around, and I was signing everything and pictures, and that's really cool and special. But at the same time, I guess in the back of my mind, I know I'm like, okay, I actually need to start like kind of going to recover, because I've got another race in 3 weeks' time, and so these things like really take a lot out of you, especially me being here at a home race. It's very emotional, mentally, I don't want to say challenging and that it's difficult, but it takes another level from you. So it's a balance between all of that. But it was extra special yesterday when I was there signing stuff for quite a while, and just to see everyone's excitement and how meaningful it was. It's like, yeah.
Well, I personally want to thank you for your time, and again, congratulations. But still a job to do. And I know you'll be that stone face again on the start line in 3 weeks' time. We want to wish you all the best. I know you have another appointment to run to, so I want to thank you for joining me. We're going to have Tyler Smith join us, and you could still stay. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And I just want to say thank you to everyone that came out yesterday to celebrate.
Celebrate.
It was incredible. This really amazing atmosphere, and thanks so much to all the volunteers. The race could not happen without them, and the local organizing committee, everyone from Bermuda Tourism, Bermuda Triathlon, the government. Yeah, it's amazing day. So I'm very grateful that got to race here again.
What's that hill called?
Oh man.
Well, thank you very much. So Tyler, you can jump in, and thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Neil, as they switch, we see the likes of Erica Hawley, who competed in Uruguay just last week. And you say it's part of the sport. It's unfortunate. It happens. But seeing her compete last week and coming back to Bermuda, your thoughts on her expectations of doing this particular race? What did you think?
I think she had a lot of expectation, because you're coming to your local crowd, and I'm sure Flora was the same when she first came back to race on local soil. Erica's been slowly making her way up the rankings. Her race in Uruguay was fantastic. She executed a beautiful race. She was a very well-deserved 8th place. She pushed hard. She was up there on the swim. She was in the lead on the bike, and then she was there into the run, and she really held her own. So, she's probably very disappointed today, but it's just one of those things. You've got to brush yourself off, get up, and it's on to your next race.
Definitely. Well, Tyler, you unfortunately didn't finish yesterday's race, but again, as Neil has already stated, it's part of the race. It's part of the challenge. It's all part of it. Your thoughts on the events that kind of got you out of the race?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one because I think everything that happened yesterday it's probably happened to me in races before. Maybe not to the same extent, but I don't know if it was necessarily like just what happened in the water that threw me out of the race, or if it was a combination of that plus the lead up of the events that was before the race, in terms of injuries and things like that. And maybe the mindset just wasn't, completely 100% ready to really have a fight, like in the water, which it just normally is. Like, unless you're like an exceptional swimmer, it's always going to be really, really rough, especially at a World Series where it's like a high density of guys that are all swimming at a really high level. But yeah, I mean, basically what just happened is I was just on the receiving end of some pretty rough swimming, and especially coming around the first buoy, lost goggles, at some point just got pushed under, started taking in a lot of water, and it wasn't like a nervous thing or like an anxiety thing pre-race. It's literally the feeling of like, I can't breathe, I don't know where I am, I just need to get out of this, and I dropped back and just had to skull for like 20 seconds after diving back in. That was kind of like what really pushed it over the edge, was diving back in and then another body like on top of you.
I have a picture of that.
I think any of those individual things is you can kind of recover from, but when they've all happened in sequence, is very difficult to regain like your bearings, your breath control and stuff like that. So yeah, I literally just had to stop and just like look around, figure out where I was. And by the time that happens, like 20 seconds later, kind of hits you that the race has moved on. And I guess like my only thing is like, could I have just continued swimming and just tried to get out of the water and on the bike and just at least do a lap on Front Street. And maybe that's what I was talking about, like the pre-race sort of circumstances in terms of being injured, where you're looking at like, well, like I was going into the race thinking like, yeah, swim, bike, get myself to the front of the race and then see what happens on the run. And like, it's going to sound like it, like for me in previous years, like where I've been in breakaways with Vasco, with Simon, with, trying to think who else was in that front back that I've been in breakaways with, swam with, came out of the water, and those are guys that I'm just like I know I have the ability to be there, and maybe I set an expectation too high that like, yeah, I'm gonna be in this position coming out of the swim, I'm gonna really attack the bike and then just see what happens on the run. And I think when that sort of game plan went out the window was my just reaction to like, okay, I'm 30 seconds back out of the swim now. It was a weird feeling. And looking back at it, it's hard to like process, or it's hard to look at it objectively, I guess. But in the moment, it was clear like I had no other option but to stop in the swim. It was after that swim that I guess maybe I'm having the regret of exiting the water, but there's nothing, you're not going to make up 30 seconds in a World Series. You're going to come out of the water last. And then is it worth running with a kick? Like there's sort of a risk and reward, and it's easy for me to sit here now and be like, oh, I wish I just continued. But obviously in the moment, I've never pulled out of a race in a swim before. So I just have to live with the fact that, okay, like I was in a position where I just couldn't continue. I've done, I don't know how 100 races and had you get dumped a lot and you get beat up a lot, but I think yesterday was just at a different level, something I've never experienced before, like the real like sort of fear for just like I just need to find a way to breathe and get out of the situation.
Neil, for the common folk of the start of a triathlon is a maze of swimmers. Everyone jumps in the water. It's not like you're in a pool where you got lane lines and all. How difficult is it for someone like Tyler that gets in a maze like that to get themselves out of it?
it's almost impossible because you're trapped in. I think Tyler will tell you that too. When you get trapped into a pack, it's very hard to get out of that pack. You've got to wait for the pack to move and give you space. It's very difficult. I think Tyler will agree to make your own space. And there are rules on how rough swims can be, and they do monitor it very carefully. But sometimes it's just pure bad luck. Tyler was, I would say yesterday, was pure bad luck. He was unfortunate. I don't think there was any malice in anything that happened to him. It was just a rough swim. And, you know, you are competing with highly trained athletes, all swimming around the same pace, all very powerful. So you've got arms and legs flying.
Yeah, definitely.
The big one is as well, like, sometimes you can find yourself out of it, but when you don't have goggles and you really can't see anything,
Right.
then you're just fighting blind, and you're just in a wash, and that kind of adds to it. So something like that is just bad luck. And yesterday there's nothing that doesn't happen in every single race that happened. It's just that sometimes you're just going to be on the receiving end of it, and sometimes you'll be absolutely fine. Some guys, but a lot of people did say it was a rough swim because you have that current, which kind of pushes everyone together, especially when you come around that first turn.
Right. Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, we talked yesterday, and you seemed to be in great spirit. You know, unfortunately, that happened, but you're looking forward to getting out there to compete again. The one of the things that I've noticed about you is you always want to prove yourself to yourself that you know you can compete at this level. Something like this happens, you get right back on that horse.
Yeah, I think I've got to figure out what to do now with the rest of my season, just because this was, I kind of extended the season specifically for this race. I've been dealing with injuries before it, so there's a certain point where you have to say, like, we're going to stop here, regroup, and try to get ready for the beginning of 2023. And next year is like really, really important for me to get Olympic points and qualify for Paris. So, I mean, getting back on the horse doesn't necessarily mean just like going straight back into another race.
Right.
It kind of means like taking like straight away today, trying to figure out what my next 12 months looks like, or next 18 months looks like how do I get to the Olympics, and what changes do I need to make, because I've kind of been on like an unsustainable pattern of injury and rehabilitation, and getting to going to races, not at full fitness, but not in full health, like where you're actively nursing an injury. And a lot of people always have something, but like to turn up to a World Series with realistically, I had like, I think 10 days of running, like without like at full body weight. You know, like the very, very best and most experienced people could maybe get away with that. But for me, like at this stage of my career, I need to just make sure I'm healthy and able to race. And that's got to be the priority for me right now. So figuring out a way to do that is like what my focus is going to be on. And then after that, you can start to look at building fitness, and then you can start to look at targeting races and getting performance. But I've kind of been in a cycle this year or over the last 12 months of like having a race that I had to do, whether it was like a Commonwealth qualification race to prove fitness, whether it was the actual Commonwealth Games, and then whether it was this, just because it's a home race. So it's always been get fit, do whatever you can to manage the existing injury, but with a race in mind, rather than get healthy, get fit, and then pick a race. So it's almost like I've got to flip that order backwards. And I know that's what found me success in like 2021 and also in 2019. So it's almost like every other year is like a healthy year, and then 2020 was really, really bad with injuries, and then 2022 has been, this has probably been my worst year, I'd say, since I've started triathlon. So, you know, what I've seen in training is like the thing that's still motivating me at the minute, because I do train with like people that are racing at a World Series level and above. Well, not above, but you know, not just at a World Series, but in performing exceptionally high in the World Series rankings, like in the top 10. So that's kind of what's giving me sort of the motivation and belief that I I can get to that level. I just need to put the right pieces in place.
Now, we know that triathlon is a individual sport, but having a team of people around you is also important. You mentioned that you train with some high-level guys in the World Series and all, but your team around you, how much time do you think you're going to have to sit down and decide those next 18 months to ensure that, one, you first are healthy physically and mentally in order to take up that challenge?
Yeah, that's kind of something probably over this week I'm gonna have to chat to, like coaches, physios, like my parents as well. Just see what they think, and they've always given me good advice, and like the good training partners and stuff like that are always good to bounce ideas off. Like in a weird situation, there was like 14 people that didn't finish the race, which is a really high dropout rate for a World Series. So there's actually a lot of like fellow athletes that are kind of like in the same situation, trying to figure out like what went wrong and like what's the next step. And I've got some. The good thing about Bermuda as well is there's so many people after the race that are just around that have been at a high level, whether they've been to the Olympics and or competed in different sports, and just coming up and just giving me like little words of wisdom. And I took a lot from that, and that kind of helped with the disappointment, I would say. So it's just kind of trying to process all that stuff and just make good decisions about where's the best place for me to be to get to where I need to be in terms of the support that I have and the people that I have working around me, because that's like really important. Like someone like Flora, I'm sure will tell you, like she has like a really solid team of people that she trusts working with her, and when I got the opportunity to train with her in South Africa, that's kind of what I saw in place. Whether it's physios, massage therapists, coaches. When you have that network of support, that's really instrumental to getting to the high level. And if I look at yesterday, it was like, it's on me as well, because you need to reach out and form those relationships. But I went into that completely underprepared. Like it was, I just probably hadn't had the conversations that I needed to have in the race, in the week leading up to the race, to be ready to dive in the water at my best.
Sure. Now, Neil, prior to Tyler's race, there was a duathlon with some kids that took part, getting ready for next weekend, a big weekend for them, and again for Bermuda, because we're hosting the Carifta Triathlon.
We are. It's the first time we would have hosted it. It's going to be a fantastic event. We've got 8 other countries coming from the Caribbean region. Some of the teams, I think Bahamas are bringing 30 athletes.
I saw 30,
This is a big event. Ian Pilgrim's the race director. He's done a tremendous job getting everything together. We obviously had the postponement because of Hurricane Ian, I think it was called. Was it Hurricane Ian?
Yes.
Ironically.
Yeah.
Sort of delayed it. It was pretty disappointing for the athletes. I mean, we've been working together now since February on this event to get them into the shape they need to be in. And I think yesterday you saw just what great shape they were all in. So it's going to be a fantastic event next weekend, and I urge everyone to come down to Clearwater. Just got to remember the roads are closing for the event for safety. It's absolutely key. So make sure you get there early, because the roads will be closed from about 8:25 on a Saturday morning. But you can come down, you can see Bermuda's best athletes compete for honors in the Caribbean.
Now, I mean, we've seen the sport grow, not just in numbers, but in quality. What do you put that down to?
It's difficult to say. A lot of it, I think, is the enthusiasm of the coaches here. It's a great coaching team. Everyone's a volunteer who coaches here. They work tremendously hard with the athletes. But also, I think having Flora out there, having Tyler out there, having Erica out there, they're amazing role models. And they came up, almost all of them were sometime involved. They turned up at Triathletes and they trained with us. So they have set the foundation, really. If you look back, Flora is one of the first in after a few years into Triathletes. And, you've really set the foundation there. And now all these athletes, they just look up. They were so excited. Tyler was here and Flora was here and Erica was here. and they were all there all day cheering them on after their race.
Yeah, that was crazy. That was like for me, that was like the highlight of the day. Like even after pulling out of the race, like there's so many kids. It was just like, wow, this is just to see how big triathlon's really gone. And I think the good thing now is like hopefully it's always been a struggle to get kids to continue on past like the age of like 15, 16. Like they get a bit more independence, and I think now hopefully we're going to see kids seeing that there is a pathway. Like even like Nick Pilgrim had like a really good race in Uruguay last week, and that's like a really high level of competition. So hopefully, more and more we'll see that you can actually continue past as good as Triathletes is. Like you can actually there's like it doesn't just end with the 15 to 16 age group. You can continue on, and there is like because Carifta goes up to
It's going up to 21.
Up to 21. So I think that's always been the challenge is taking like the really big group that we have at like a young age, and you see it dwindle. And I think events like this, hopefully seeing Flora and seeing Erica, seeing myself, seeing Nick, like it starts to build this momentum of showing that there's a pathway that you can continue doing the sport into university and beyond.
Sure.
And I think there's some pretty big barriers. One thing, and Tyler will probably attest to this, is that if you look at the way your run was, for quite a long time, your run wasn't quite there. But then you persevered, and your run doesn't just happen.
Right.
It's something that you do keep improving at. And Tyler, I watched him, he was getting a little bit better. Then suddenly you had like a monumental jump. And I think pretty much the same as Erica. And I suppose you have to put that down to the years and years of racing experience, staying there, the training, and eventually it's going to come together, and I saw it come together for Erica in Uruguay last week. I saw it come together for Nick in Uruguay. Nick put in a fantastic run for him. He broke down some big barriers last week. I mean, he was out in the lead group on the bike with one of the US's top juniors. They got caught pretty quickly because of the size of the pack. It was dry roads, they were motoring. But he went out into that run and he gave it everything. And he improved greatly from the other runs he's done. He took, a minute and a half of his time in the run. It was fantastic to see. Yeah. But I think Tyler makes a good point. There is a pathway, but you've really got to be determined to follow your pathway, because you've got to balance it with education. You've got to balance it with finding training partners, because that's I think one of the big issues people tell me is they'll go away to boarding school or university and they've got no one to train with.
Right.
But now that's changing.
Yeah.
There's a lot more tri clubs at universities. There's a lot more running clubs. There's a lot more cycling. So if you really want it, you can build it. And Tyler, Erica, Flora, living proof you can do it.
Yeah. One of the things we know, we need to keep testing our kids. Now, this event next week is a good test for them in the region. Are the other countries around the Caribbean looking to do not a Carifta, but a kind of a more events together to give these kids even more opportunities to compete internationally as opposed to just domestically? I know it's expensive, but
yeah, I think you'll probably just see Carifta each year happening within the region. But then on the outside of that, there are lots of races, junior races in the US, and it is far easier for people in the Caribbean to travel to the US, or for us to travel to the US to race, than it is to actually get down into the Caribbean. It's logistically a nightmare because the number of flights and overnighting, with our lack of airlift, it makes it kind of difficult. But we went to Clermont the other year, and there was Bahamas were there, I think Barbados were there, some of the other countries were there with teams. And so we can all meet up and we can gauge ourselves against the Caribbean, which is kind of nice to do. We're expecting a very high level of event based on what we've seen online of the athletes from these different countries. And Barbados is a good example. They've really upped their game.
Sure.
Yeah, they had a relay at the Commonwealth Games, as did Trinidad as well. So in the region, it's the level of triathlon, like in the entire Caribbean or like Carifta region, is definitely going up. And it's good that we're having that event, because that's a really important stepping stone to have like a regional event before you just go, I'm going to go to, I think my first IT race was like a North American Championships. And you're racing guys there that have been in the US or Canada, and they have 6, 7 races with 60 guys that they've already done at a junior level before they turn up to that. Whereas that's your first ever like 60 person. So even if you're super fit, you have really no chance in that race because you have zero experience. So Carifta is like a really important stepping stone for obviously Bermudian triathletes, but just everyone in the region to compare themselves, see where they're at, and be able to compete at a level of similar people, and then obviously take what they've learned from that, and then they can go to North American Championships, Pan American Championships, or World Junior Championships, and it's a bit more of a steady progression rather than going from literally like iron kids to North American Championships in 6 months. It's a huge jump. So.
Sure. And lastly, when Erica had her unfortunate accident yesterday, you showed a lot of concern for kind of a teammate. What were some of the things you shared with her to kind of calm her down? I mean, it was an emotional time for her.
Yeah. Obviously she was in quite a bit of pain initially, and fingers crossed that it's not too serious of a break or anything like that, or fingers crossed that it's just not broken and it's just this kind of bruising and road rash, and I'm sure she'll be able to update everyone like later in the day. I think as much as there is the pain of the actual physical injury, it's also having to exit a race in a home crowd, and I don't know if it the thing is, like, I had to do the same thing 6 hours earlier, so I kind of knew like this is a terrible feeling. But yeah, we've raced our entire careers together, so we know each other really well, and I can't really remember in specific what we really spoke about, but we're almost just already talking about the next race, which is a World Cup in Chile, and looking at the results from what she did in Uruguay, she's really on track to qualify for the Olympics. Like, that was a big points grab for her. So she's in really good spot right now, and yesterday in the race she was in a good spot as well, like in that chase pack, like with some of the best triathletes in the world. It's tough because there's 50 people on the start line, 55 people on the start line, but that is the best 55 triathletes in the world, and how many people were in Tokyo that were racing yesterday was probably half the field. And everyone that's here is good chance that they'll be in Paris as well. So to just be at that, like, floor almost is so good that maybe you forget like she's beating the second best in the world by a minute. Like, right. that's it just doesn't happen. Like, that is just it's not really happened before in triathlon, and she's just at a completely different level. But the rest of those girls are at an extremely high level. And yeah, Erica obviously disappointed, but I know she'll be back and continuing on with her success. Yeah.
Well, I want to wish you all the best. We need to make sure that you are in all the right places when you need to be in the right places, spaces, and of course, we'll keep track of what you're doing. And for your next event, good luck. Yeah. Neil, big weekend next weekend.
Very big weekend. It's going to be fantastic. We've got 39 athletes competing for Bermuda. They've trained very, very hard. They've put a lot of dedication and time into this. So, we're really hoping to see some outstanding performances and some medals coming our way, and some good points as points competition. Okay. So it's going to be fun.
All right. Well, folks, Neil Disengua, Tyler Smith, earlier, Dame Flora Duffy, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Earl. Okay. You got to shoot off?
Yeah.